like The Gift of Fear from Gavin Becker. So he's referencing another book in here called Self-Help from Samuel Smiles, where the guy goes, Samuel wrote, men whose acts are a direct variance with their words commands no respect, and what they say has but little weight. Now, what Gavin mentions here is, he says, unfortunately, this isn't true in our time. Unlike when people lived in small communities and could not escape their past behavior, we live in an age of anonymous, one-time encounters, and many people have become experts at the art of fast persuasion. Trust, formerly earned through actions, is now purchased with sleight of hand and sleight of words. So what I like here, what I want to refer to is, especially in our industry, is a lot of us, with our dogs out in the real world, have these anonymous one-time encounters. But those one-kind encounters accumulate, and then there's problems. So that's when people come to us and they're like, oh, my dog's been attacked twice or 3 times by different dogs and things, and it's created this problem. Okay. Yeah. So the thing that I'm seeing is, because if you have the public that are not educated and they don't have the skills with their dogs and they don't have the communication, it only takes a minimum of about between 3 to 7 encounters, depending on how intense it is, for that to affect your dog for the rest of its life. So for example, if I'm training my dog as an assistance dog, so I get the puppy, I pay all the money, and then I do the training for the next 2 years. In that 2 years, if I have a specific goal I need to reach, and 7 people in those 2 years, let's say, come up and just randomly touch the dog and like, oh, hello, they could potentially teach my assistance dogs to elicit attention or to pay attention to people try and distract them. The problem is, that's an automatic fail in the public access test. Okay, so if you're not managing the interactions between you, just managing, I'm not saying controlling, but just managing to the interactions between your dog and the real world, it doesn't take much for that to affect your dog for the long run. Ignorance, as Glenn Cook says, is expensive, right? And the thing is, you're not only going to pay in time and money, but you're going to pay in emotional trauma, right? So this weekend, we've had this dog who's 7 years old, and she's been living with this lady. The lady's had it for 2 months. She's got bitten twice, and she's like, okay, so we went for pain assessment. They put her on painkillers. They did this, after that, and they were like, there's not a lot of internal problems, like injuries, that's contributing to the stress. She's been on raw food for 2.5 months, so we know the health is good. And the dog is on medication for anxiety. I can't remember what. And this dog is still anxious. This dog is so anxious that any change, so like for example, if you take her bed from one end of the room to the next, or you move her food ball from outside to inside, stresses her. And it takes her up to 2 weeks to adapt. Right? So genetically speaking, this poor dog has had the worst outcome ever. It's had the people who raised this dog wasn't paying attention, and now we have this 7-year-old dog that we can't help, right? So we had to go and put her down this week, because this dog is suffering when she wakes up, and it's so emotionally, it's horrible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's because someone, a public person, went and bought this dog off Gumtree, right? They wanted this dog. They weren't paying attention as the dog was growing up. And at 7 years old, they decided, well, we can't deal with it anymore. So the one who's paying the highest price is the dog, right? The second highest price is us, who's trying to help this dog and rehabilitate it. And we're putting in the time, we're putting in the money, it's just... And that's why I'm so passionate now about, like, educating the public's great, that's fine. But they must take it upon themselves, their education. They must take it into their hands. Yeah. So this is a quote from Darren Hardy that I really love. He says, knowledge is potential power, because you actually have to put it in action. Does that make sense? Knowledge is